In 2018, the city of Allahabad was renamed to Prayagraj.
Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister has announced that he will soon rename Allahabad to Prayagraj.
जिस शहर को दुनिया इलाहाबाद के नाम से जानती है, उसे कुछ दिनों के बाद प्रयागराज के नाम से पुकारा जाएगा.
And in the same year, Faizabad was renamed into Ayodhya.
The Uttar Pradesh government has decided to rename Faizabad railway station as Ayodhya Cant.
And from amongst all those demands, there is one such demand that really stands out, and that is the demand to rename Bakhtiyarpur. And rename into what exactly? Well, nobody knows that. But then you might ask, what is even the point of asking for a renaming? Well, that's one way of looking at it. There's a big backstory to it, which is kind of interesting. So we'll try to cover that in this video. So hang on until the end. In late 12th century in Afghanistan, there was this guy, Mohammad Bakhtiyar Khilji. Well, you might be able to connect this with Bakhtiyar and Bakhtiyarpur. Yes, absolutely. Bakhtiyarpur is named after this guy, Mohammad Bakhtiyar Khilji. So this guy, in the late 12th century, he tried to come into India and join Qutbuddin Aybak's army. But he was refused any position in his army. So he went eastward. He then started working in different places under different people until a certain Malik Husam al-Din recognized him for his worth and gave him an estate in today's Mirzapur district, where he started to govern it, and from there on he started his military career. He started by raiding small villages and plundering them, and slowly and gradually he started raiding and conquering different kingdoms and different places and plundering them. In 1200, Bakhtiyar Khilji conquered Bihar, which gave him some recognition in the courts of Delhi. And in the same year, he conquered Bengal after having defeated its previous ruler, Lakshmana Sen. It is said that it was under his watch that Buddhism was displaced from Bengal and was replaced by Islam, having overseen thousands of converts. So much so that a Bangladeshi poet, Ali Mahmud, even wrote a poem called Bakhtiyar Ghora, dedicating it to him, where he was depicted as the praiseworthy hero of Muslim conquest of Bengal. So basically, he is one of the greatest military generals that India has ever seen. And he has a lot of conquests and victories under his belt. And with that, he has something else in his credit. And that is the destruction of Nalanda, Odantapuri and Vikramashila Mahaviharas. So, which were world famous universities of its time. So while Bakhtiyar Khilji was destroying these universities, not only did he kill monks, students and teachers in thousands, but he also destroyed and burned books in the number of millions. So there is this story that when Bakhtiyar Khilji was burning the library of Nalanda, it kept burning for like 3 months. Can you believe that? It burned for 3 months. Yes, 3 months. Let's just even put aside the killings that he did. Let's just even focus in the number of books that he must have destroyed in this process. And remember, it was in 12th century. There was no printing press. All those books were like handwritten. Those books in the number of millions. So it had all the depictions of our culture, the records of our history. So like that is the very reason that we do not have a good written history of our country. And this is the very reason why last time the Britishers came, they said to us that how uncivilized you guys are. You don't even have your own written history. So we'll write it for you, don't worry. And they did a really great job in writing our history for us. Now, let us come back to the question of whether there needs to be a renaming of Bakhtiyarpur. So on the one hand, we have the argument for a renaming, which suggests that since Bakhtiyarpur is named after Bakhtiyar Khilji, who just happens to be a mass murderer and a destroyer of universities. So much so that he, while he destroyed Nalanda and its library, our civilization went back about 100 years. And so, like, can we even have a town or a city named after such a person, a mass murderer? Well, common sense would say no. But then it's just not about common sense. There's another side to it even. And on the other hand, the opposing argument says that since Bakhtiyar Khilji himself established the town of Bakhtiyarpur, it would be like messing with our history if we go forward and change the name of a town that has been in existence for more than 800 years or so, which our Indian media describes as itihas ke saath khilwar, as if nobody ever before played with our history. But then I'd say that this argument seems somewhat valid, if not totally valid. Another argument is that this kind of name changing of Muslim or Arabic names into Sanskrit or Hindu names can or may lead to the marginalizing or sidelining of the Muslims of a country, which too is kind of valid because it is natural that some Muslims might get offended or hurt with these kind of changes, even if it was unintended. This, you can see, is a central theme behind a lot of issues like the Ram Janambhoomi case or the Kashi Vishwanath case or the renaming of Ayodhya and Allahabad and many more cases. On the one hand, we have the right-wing Hindu nationalists, as many like to call them, who argue that we cannot let things that symbolize the subjugation and oppression of a people to continue existing, because that would be an insult to the memory of our ancestors. And therefore we should reclaim our history for ourselves, which I am in agreement with. And on the other hand, there are people who argue that it will lead to the sidelining of our Indian Muslims and it will lead to their sentiments being hurt, which too is kind of correct. But then we'll have to ask whether there's a way around it. But then for it, we'll need a lot of discussion and dialogue and a lot of debates, polite debates between intellectuals and leaders of different communities. But then there's another group of people who simply dismiss the whole question. They say that there is an attempt, they allege that there is an attempt at saffronization or Hinduization or Sanskritization of our history. And to them, I'd like to say, please forget history. History is not your cup of tea. Please go back to 5th grade and solve some aptitude questions because doesn't matter whether you are against or for this sort of renaming. You have to acknowledge that this question is valid, that there was a need of this question to be raised, that whether we need a renaming. But now you might ask, what is my position here? Well, I don't know if there needs to be a renaming or not. But I know two things with complete certainty. And those are, number one, that we need more discussion and more dialogues and polite debates. And because the society needs to come up with a solution in itself and not depend on the political class or the judiciary for any sort of solution. And the second is that we the people, especially the children, must be aware of what our history actually tells us. And especially about these major incidents and events like the destruction of Nalanda. I'd really like to know what your opinion is, what you think about this matter. So please comment it down below. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you want to see more of us, please consider subscribing to our channel.